Blast from the grassroots, connecting people and sharing ideas.
We were definitely swayed by the music just now. This is Arlene. We are back again with our Blast from the Grassroots.
Hello, this is Grace.
And yeah, just now earlier was the song by The Bird and the Bee, How Deep Is Your Love. Is so soothing. We almost forgotten that we have to talk about something so serious, which is Budget 2015 and what can Malaysians expect out of this. Before we start with Budget 2014 and 2015 and whatsoever, just to let you know, Malaysian government do have an official web page, to be exact. It's called www.1.treasury.gov.my /gov.my/tax TEKS_BI.html. In this particular web page, it has everything that you need to know about 2014 budget. Although the 2015 budget will be released and announced on the 10th of October. And with the budget 2014, unfortunately, the web page only have the speech. The other links are more on other financial ministry, and nothing much except for economic reports and estimated expenditure. We actually did a research on Singapore's budget, the web page, which is very interesting because considering Singapore it has a similar background than Malaysia when it comes to demographic, and also when it comes to the way the government present its budget, because it has always been ruled by one party, even though it's a democratic system similar to Malaysia. But Singapore's budget webpage is very comprehensive. We were very impressed by it.
Yeah, we don't want to compare Malaysia to Singapore one to one exactly, but then it's we can't ignore that how it is well organized on the website, how well structured it is, and for audience to see, or for people to see what will happen and what's actually going on with the budget 2014 and 2015, so we can actually get more information and what we can expect from this particular plan from the government.
Just a bit of the background on Singapore's budget is www.singapore_budget.gov.sg/budget_2014/home.aspx. So in its front page, it has links to budget speech video, budget measures, revenue and expenditure, pioneer generation package. I will explain why they have this area called Pioneer Generation Package, budget debate roundup speech, business calculation, past budget archives. So the reason why they have this Pioneer Generation, because for the budget 2014, one of their key focus is the senior citizen. The Singapore society is getting older and older, and one of their key aim for their budget is to serve and to take care this older generation.
So senior citizens need to be taken care of in terms of health, in terms of public services, so that the government has actually looked into those areas specifically, and they have listed down all those things on the website itself.
And for Singapore's budget 2014, it has a theme. It's called Opportunities for the Future, Assurance for Our Seniors. What about Malaysia's budget for 2014? Do they have a theme?
They had a theme that it was more about the economical perspective, which was strengthening economic resilience, accelerating transformation, and fulfilling promises. That was budget 2014 theme.
It's funny because Malaysians, they love, especially in the civil society, they love to do a lot of protest, campaign, awareness. But when it comes to discussion about budget, they are actually quite silent about this. And not because they want to stay silent, it is because there's a very lack of awareness that discussion about budget is not necessary within the purview of economists, academicians, or think tank, people from working in the think tank. It is something that should be a discourse among all strata of Malaysians. Everyone should know what they are getting into when it comes to the budget that the government will be tabling in the parliament on the 10th of October.
And also, people need to be aware of the plan itself and then seek for information, correct information, for the sake of economic growth, because 2014 main focus was the economic, and that year, particular year, 2014, was the final year of a 10th Malaysian plan, which we call the 10 MP. So 2015 will be the 11th MP that Malaysia has to come up with, and it's the apparently one of the biggest plan that Malaysia can come up with.
Very, very interesting. But what about South Korea? Are Korean people aware of the budget the Korean government table?
We are very sensitive when it comes to budget
Really,
plan.
very, very sensitive.
It's very sensitive, and the government itself try their best to inform and deliver the message to the people and make sure people know what they're paying for and know how much money they have to earn from the company, and the taxations. Also, the information that they needed to get will receive from the government itself.
And for any citizen, especially diverse citizen like Malaysia, it's important to have diverse, not just in terms of race and religion, but also in terms of classes. So it's important for government to produce budget documents that can be accessible by the general public, not just in terms of the physical document, but also in terms of the language, the presentation of the document. So in countries where the government are much more matured in terms of its democracy, they actually produce citizens' budget. Citizens' budget, this is according to the International Budget Partnership, where they focus on open budget and transparency among government in presenting their budget, and also producing key documents, not just in terms of the budget speech, but throughout the year. There are different budgets that the government need to produce. Either it's a budget review or new budget, or different budgets catering to different sector of society.
So like you mentioned, the budget itself is very important because it's a matter of meeting competing priorities. The government needs to focus on increasing spending allocation where it is critically needed, and also reprioritize spending to ensure the sustainable economic. So with all the plans that the government has, the other very important part that we can't ignore is execution. How the plan is executed and that actually delivered all those plans to public itself.
For Malaysia, we only have the budget speech. We went through the government official website. That's the only information that we get. Of course, there are economic reports and expenditure estimation, but that's not enough when you talk about budgeting for the entire country. And for citizens' budget is another document that the government needs to produce. And this is what is the definition that is being given by the International Budget Partnership. It is a summary of the national budget designed to reach and be understood by as large a segment of the population as possible. This type of document promotes budget transparency and accountability by making budget information more accessible. It should not serve as a replacement for a country's detailed annual budget documents, but rather as an important supplement. Below are some, so they have, sorry, I mentioned too much, but they have some example of documents. You can go to their website, internationalbudget.org. You click to the area where they discuss about citizens' budget. They give a few example of different countries. For example, India, New Zealand, South Africa, El Salvador, France, United Kingdom. They all have citizens' budget to explain what the hell they are going to spend for their whole country.
Yes, exactly. And then when it comes to Malaysia, we do have our broad budget plan. So those are the 5 categories that we can have a look into. which are fiscal consolidation and continued improvement in the management of public funds, sustaining investment momentum, productivity and innovation, controlling inflation and the rising cost of living, and lastly is ensuring affordable housing. So actually, the government has came up with quite quite a number of plans for affordable housing area for the people who are between the lower and medium incomers.
Mm. Just to give a bit of suggestion from different website, for example, says.com, which is kind of interesting for budget 2015. Of course, we will go back to budget 2014. But just to reveal, these are the 4 focus as being spoken by Datuk Sri Ahmad Husni Hananzla, the second finance minister. One of it is efforts to reduce cost of living. This is pretty obvious. And second is subsidy rationalization initiative. It's a pretty huge work, quite bombastic. But what he meant is the focus would be to direct at how the government could save with the subsidy rationalization initiative so that the revenue could be channeled to targeted groups. So perhaps the underlying meaning could be to reduce subsidy so that or to have a more targeted subsidy towards those who really need subsidies, not to everyone exactly. And the third one is growing the entrepreneurship sector. Malaysia's entrepreneurship sector is definitely not as vibrant as other countries. For example, the US is quite vibrant, especially you go to Palo Alto. A lot of interesting entrepreneurs, especially tech entrepreneurs, producing really interesting stuff. But within Southeast Asia, even to talk about Singapore, which is one of the most advanced country in Southeast Asia, they are still not on par yet when it comes to growing entrepreneurship. The sector itself. Perhaps South Korea could be one of the key countries within Asia or East Asia to produce more eligible and more interesting entrepreneurs that can produce really interesting stuff.
Of course, entrepreneurs from different the kinds of industries, and they can actually help definitely to improve the economical growth in our nation.
Mm-hmm. I have to mention South Korea all the time because it is a good comparison. If thinking that South Korea have been going from a very dictatorial government to a government that practice democracy to a society that really question every movement of the government, which is a very healthy democracy. And another one movement that I think is really positive is a special gender budget. As we all know, the women's group and women's NGOs in Malaysia have been quite vocal for some time, but a lot of their demands haven't been really met. And their demands are very basic. A lot of it is about employment, a lot of it is about rights as well. One of it, of course, is the domestic violence, their right to protect themselves, their right to access to the law and enforcers and other forms of enforcement by the government. So the special gender budget that he didn't really mention that much what is it all about, but most probably is targeted towards women. And women, of course, is a very important workforce for Malaysia. And that sums up what the focus on budget 2015 would be.
And also, we can't forget the biggest focus, Arlene, which is
Oh yeah. I will go on to that. That is the positive side of the budget 2015. Of course, the biggest focus of budget 2015 is definitely the GST.
Yes.
The government tax and services. And the GST is very controversial ever since last year when the government mooted that it will implement the GST. Like it or not, there were a lot of protests against it, but it is still going on nevertheless, and the government will explain further how the GST would impact society either in a positive or negative way. It is left to be seen.
And then the government is expected to set this budget 2015 target at the 3.0% of GDP, gross domestic product. So because estimated amount percentage was 3.5 GDP in 2014. So definitely our Prime Minister can come up with a better plan for this budget 2015, which is coming up very soon on October 10th.
Definitely very soon. And for those who are not aware what the hell is GST, I have to use the word what the hell. But GST is a replacement of the current tax and the current sales tax, which is just a normal 5% tax whenever you purchase something. If you go to McDonald's, if you buy something that costs you, for example, 10 ringgit, it will be 5% out of 10 ringgit, and you have to pay just a bit more, and that money will channel towards the government. But for GST, it's a bit different because it's taxing you from upstream to downstream. So it's not just on the consumer end that it will be taxed. It's also on the production end. So let's say you want to buy a hamburger from McDonald's, a Big Mac. So it's not just the Big Mac that will be taxed by the 5% government tax, but it's also at the production of the burger itself. For example, the flour, the meat, the rental, everything, the whole upstream and downstream of the production, and also to the consumer end, will be taxed by the government. And that make a lot of difference in a way that it will increase the government revenue indefinitely, but it will also create a higher cost of living. And this is the area that the government cannot just address using like quick fixes, for example, the BRIM welfare program, but it has to be a more structural welfare initiative for government to address this.
So definitely, government, this will be the changes in terms of taxation, and it's around the 6%, I believe, the GST, the rate, and this implementation is part of government's tax reform program to enhance the capability and effectiveness and transparency of tax administration and management itself.
And one of the reason why the government is implementing GST, because it also wanting to reduce the corporate tax. For example, this is what is being said by Berjaya Sports Toto Berhad. It is said that the implementation of GST and the reduction of the corporate tax to 24% in 2006 will likely reduce their FY16 earnings projection by 5.4% of the company makes no adjustment to the price payout. So in a way that the government, while it is increasing its taxation towards consumer goods like the GST, it is also reducing corporate tax. In a way, it will create more positive impact to companies perhaps, but it will indefinitely not be happy when it comes to how the general public will react to this.
Oh, and also, in addition to that, a lot of people do question why the government proposed this GST rate, which is actually lower than the current tax rate, is by imposing this GST rate at lower expected, the consumers will benefit from the price reduction and the most of goods and services especially, and also it will also not burden the right yet, especially the lower income group. So it is the lower rate is to neutralize the GSP impact on the certain community and the consumers.
We have a bit time, but this bit time just to move back and to look at budget 2014.
Okay.
Perhaps you have more information about this.
2014, there
were
a
quick information about
few categories, and one of the highlighted one that I will say is tax relief. Government proposed a special tax relief of 2,000 ringgit will be given to taxpayers with a monthly income of 8K received in 2013.
So for budget 2014, it's definitely a boom towards those who are the middle class, those who earn 8K and beyond. But
Yes,
not
definitely.
many Malaysians are earning 8K and beyond.
It's really high incomers, the rate, I will say. And then, like as I mentioned before, they were focusing more on the housings because Malaysia, we still do have a lot of lower medium incomers in Malaysia.
And one of it is the One Malaysia housing scheme. Has it been successful? Has Malaysian young people been happy about the housing scheme? Looking at the climate, it is still left to be questioned because a lot of Malaysians still are complaining they are not able to buy houses nearby Kuala Lumpur or nearby the Klang Valley area in order for them to be able to live a stable and to have shelter.
But however, a lot of buildings have been coming up in this few months of time in this year. But however, it's I don't see a much change into to focus on and the targeted on this certain groups in Malaysia.
Other than that, of course, it's also about highlighting the Bantuan Rakyat Satu Malaysia or BRIM, which is like what I said earlier, is something that Malaysians are still questioning whether it's a welfare system that really help Malaysian or it's just a one-off pay every year.
It's actually a cash handout system that is targeted for example, cash handouts to household with a monthly income of 3K below they will actually increase from 650 to 500. So that it's actually help financial aid to those people who will be suffering with a low income.
A lot of the categories, I'm looking at the budget proposal or the budget speech and also the paper itself. A lot of the information that has been written here are definitely directly would impact people either in negative or positive way. For example, the first thrust, which is to invigorate economic activity. One of it is about, here are the list of activities. For example, they want to focus on logistics sector, promoting aviation, tourism, internet access, financial market, pension scheme, moving up the value chain in agriculture sector, entrepreneur development, and also small and medium enterprises, which is short for SME. So a lot of these are really positive impact if the government really focus on it. Especially aviation is interesting because we have the MH370 and MH17, which have really somehow degraded the branding image of our national airline. So in a way, what's the conclusion for this before we end the discussion on budget?
Definitely, with all the categories the government has to focus, and there was supposed to focus in 2014, will need some consideration to look into all those categories again, and to be able to meet people's expectation. And one of the highlighted one and the big focus of the next year is GST. So to conclude, this is the government has to really listen to people's shout out and people's message, what they really want from the government in terms of budget, because it's very sensitive. People try their best to earn the monthly, but somehow with the increasing cost of living, there are quite a lot of community are still suffering.
My take out on this, there are three different areas I want to address. Number one is definitely whatever that the government has been presented during the budget speech. It is, if you look it on paper, it's really, really good. It is something that when you see, oh, the government is definitely doing the right thing. But the problem is there's no follow-up. There's no review of it. We don't know what is happening with the One Malaysia book voucher, One Malaysia housing program, or BRIM. Have people benefited from this? So the government should definitely have follow-up budget discussion on this. And in budget transparency partnership, definitely they said that for any democratic government, they have to produce 8 different documents in order for them to consider as a government that is transparent on its budget. And one of it is citizens' budget, which goes to my second point. I believe that a good society is a society that is aware of the government's dealing, and having a citizens budget is a way to educate the public. This is what the government is spending, and this is what you need to ensure that the government is accountable of. If you believe that the government shouldn't spend on this, you should have access to citizens budget and to voice up to the government, hey, you shouldn't be spending on this. And the third one, which is also the one that I felt is very important, is for the government to learn from other countries on how to spend wisely and not create wastage. And a lot of people right now are definitely complaining about the high cost of living and the government spending on things that are unnecessary. These are the areas that should be published in the budget as well, especially in the budget review.
So we will listen to on the 10th of October what our Prime Minister will say on the budget 15.
With that, we will continue our discussion with another trade agreement. This time is between US and Europe.
Yes, it's called TTIP. And let's stay on for ABC dialogue later.